I want to bring in Republican Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska. We should note, of course, by the way, that Xi Jinping, when he's reelected, it's by the National People's Congress. It's not by the people, the way that we do it here in the United States. Senator, how does the United States transition from this increasingly combative relationship with China into one that is less hostile? And what was your reaction to the new foreign minister's comments?
Well, I know the foreign minister, and I think his comments about the United States needing to pump the brakes or there's going to be some kind of conflict. I think China, the Chinese Communist Party, Jake, is the one that needs to pump the brakes. Look at what they've done in terms of aggressive actions in the last 2 years. I mean, obviously the pandemic is a huge issue, but with regard to its neighbors, whether it literally was a shooting war on the border with India, the crushing of any kind of liberty and democracy in Taiwan, the crushing of what's going on with regard to the Uyghurs, an economic embargo and coercion against Australia, and the aggressive actions that they take almost daily in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. That's just in the last 2 years. So
Right.
This is a regime that is showing very aggressive actions to its neighbors and all around the world. And I think if anyone needs to pump the brakes on their actions, it's the Chinese Communist Party, not America.
On the subject of Taiwan, there are reports that Taiwan's president is going to meet with Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in April. China's foreign ministry have warned McCarthy not to visit Taiwan, so it's possible the meeting might take place in California. We don't know. Either way, Beijing is likely going to react. What do you think about McCarthy meeting the president of Taiwan? Is that appropriate? Do you support it? We should remind people that then Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, and that was also considered poking the bear.
Well, you remember when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, I actually led a statement of over 40, I think it was 40 U.S. senators, bipartisan group of senators, that said we should support Pelosi's visit. Actually, I'm sorry, on Pelosi's visit, it was just Republicans, ironically. I actually think if the speaker, the number 3 elected official in our government, wants to visit Taiwan, that individual should be able to do so, and we shouldn't let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where elected American officials can travel.
You represent Alaska in the Senate. I want to ask you about the Willow project.
Yeah.
It's a massive, decades-long oil drilling venture on federal land in Alaska. The Biden administration is expected to make a decision soon on whether to approve it. You say, quote, almost every Alaskan is unified in support of the Willow project, especially the Native people. There are leaders of the Alaska Native community of Nuiqsut who have been vocally opposed to the project. The Native Movement Advocacy Group wrote a letter to the Interior Secretary, Holland, saying that the community has repeatedly pointed out the, quote, horrendous lack of adequate consultation, the significant impact on the health of Nuiqsut residents, and the imminent detrimental loss of access to food subsistence resources. What is your message to the Nuiqsut residents?
Well, Jake, as I've said, the vast majority of the Alaska Native people support it. And with regard to certain individuals in Nuiqsut, we've heard their concerns, but overall, the majority of the people on the North Slope, the Inupiat people, are very supportive. The Alaska Federation is very supportive. This is something that we mentioned to the president in our meeting with him on Thursday. And what's really frustrating for us, and particularly Alaska Native leaders, they were here in force last week in front of the Capitol. We held a press conference, was this idea that, look, the main drivers of shutting down the Willow project are lower 48 environmental groups, and they like to come up and tell Alaskans, particularly Alaska Natives, how they should be living their lives. A lot of the Alaska Native leaders that I know in our state are starting to call this the second wave of colonialism, eco-colonialism from lower 48 environmental groups who don't know anything about Alaska and come up and tell Alaska Natives who've been living in our great state for thousands and thousands of years how to run their lives. So I think the president, this is exactly the kind of project that President Biden should be supporting. It's got the highest environmental standards in the world. His own environmental impact statement from his administration said that. If you focus on racial equity, environmental justice, the vast majority of the Native people support it. The vast majority of American working members, unions, all supported. Every union in Alaska supports this project. And of course, we're talking about China right now. One of the biggest things Xi Jinping fears is American energy dominance. This is really important for our national security as well as our domestic energy security and jobs. So we're hopeful that the president is going to finally support this project. It's been in permitting for many, many years, as you mentioned, and it's got the vast majority of Alaskans. One thing I did, I handed the president a resolution from the Alaska legislature, the House and the Senate, back home. Every member of the legislature signed that resolution. I presented it to the president in the Oval Office. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Native, non-Native legislators. So it's strongly supported back home in Alaska.
One quick question. January 6, 2021 is back in the news because Fox is trying to offer a revisionist theory about what happened. That day you condemned the attack. You called it disgraceful. You said it was a sad day in American history. I wanted to ask you because I just learned a few months ago that Rudy Giuliani called you on January 6. Before the vote to certify the election. He left messages on your phone. What did he say?
Yeah, look, that was in the report, the January 6th report. I was even unaware of that. This was a phone call from somebody. I didn't even know who it was. They left a message. I listened to the message a few days later. Ironically, Jake, it was actually for the wrong senator. Rudy Giuliani had the wrong phone number. I mean, I've never met him. I don't know him. He was, I barely even understood what he was saying. So it was something about, relooking at this. It was, like I said, for another senator, I had listened to it a few days after. And to be honest, it was quite bizarre. And again, I don't even know really Rudy Giuliani.
All right. It seemed bizarre. I just wanted to know what the message.
Trust me, it was bizarre, and it was the wrong number, to be perfectly honest.
All right. Republican Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska, thank you so much. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Jake.